Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm introducing new product for my Etsy shop, and we're going to be making some shaker cards. I did do some prep work, so you'll see that a few things are already initially completed, and then I'll move over to a voiceover for the rest of this video. So here's just a quick pic of the cut files that you'll get in the pack when you purchase it. Today we're just going to do 2 of those items, and I'm going to start with the oval balloon shaker, which is the most simple, I would say, in the package are the 2 balloon shapes. Right now I'm just laying out where I want the string to go. I didn't include strings in the packages just because string shapes can vary, and I would prefer myself anyway to draw those in the way I want them to be drawn in. So I'll start off with a pencil sketch and do that, and then go over it with a pen. Here I am ink blending Wilted Violet from the bottom of the card up. I wanted to blend it from solid color into nothing. And originally I had planned to do like a cool tone card. So the balloon was going to be a blue to green gradient, and then the card would be purple. But I didn't like the way that was looking, so I changed direction. And here you'll see that I'm actually deciding to do a yellow balloon. And then I decided that I would give it a little bit more dimension with some alcohol markers. So I'm just blending up a shadow around the bottom, and then I'm using a colorless blender just to like help fade those edges out so they're not so harsh. And then to build up the walls of my shaker, I decided to do multiple layers of the frame itself because I don't like fiddling with foam tape on something so narrow. I try to make them slightly thicker than 1/8 of an inch. You can get foam strips that are that thin, but I just prefer not to do that, and decided to cut 6 layers total of the frames. 5 will go under the acetate sheet, and the top layer will be the one that I use the alcohol markers on for the shadows. Here I am gluing them to the balloon base, and then I'll use some anti-static powder just to make sure that nothing's sticking. And I'm using Studio Katia sugar glitter discs as my shaker bits before I put the acetate sheet on top. And I'm also going to add a little bit of that anti-static powder tool to the acetate, just in case. I do have an issue with that a little bit later with my mini sequins, because they do tend to have a little bit more static in them, probably because of the container they're in. So here I am adding just that top layer to finish off the balloon, and then I'll glue it on top of that original balloon, and you won't even notice that was ever there. And then I'm just continuing that line so that it looks like the string is attached to the balloon before I add the sentiment. The sentiment also comes in the pack. I did a happy birthday and a celebrate sentiment to come with this. I do have a happy birthday pack that I did last year that was all sentiments and balloon shapes. This year I decided to do it in a different font and style, just to add variety, and then you don't have to have both packs if you don't want them. The pack from last year that I have is a bit more bubble lettery, kind of more fun, whereas these ones are scripty fonts, which look great. I did lose the little tittle for the eye, so I ended up drawing that in because I didn't want to cut another full sentiment just to do that. And to finish the card off, I just added a few more of those glitter discs in the background. For the second card, we're going to be doing the cake shaker, which is a little bit more involved. Again, I would suggest cutting multiple layers of that frame layer instead of doing the foam tape, as there is more areas to put sequins on this. I did do it as a 3-layered cake, so you'll have 3 sections to put sequins in, and I made sure that they were separate just so that you could have sequins over all of them. I guess you could cut them apart and do one big sequin area if you wanted to, but that's up to you. I just like this 3-tiered look. It's a little bit more of a 3-dimensional look as well, because I noticed a lot of the ones that I've seen out in the market are very flat looking cakes. This one looks like a dimensional cake, so you can see that the layers sit within one another. I ended up cutting them all in brown cardstock just because it was easier. I wanted to do a chocolate cake. And then just to make those frosting layers darker, I just use a darker alcohol marker just to give it that coloring. And I didn't have to cut multiple different cardstock colors for it. You can if you want to, of course. You could do this cake in a rainbow if you want. I have a lot of ideas to do this, so in the future I will be making more of these in future videos. There's one for a wedding that I have in mind. I want to do a rainbow cake, vanilla cake, confetti cake, just, you know, there's just so many you can do with this. And again, you can change it up. You don't have to use all of the frosting layers. You could just use the top sections just so that the icing sits on the very top, or you could use the top and the drizzle, which is what I did for this one. And I also filled this with some mini sequins that I got from Micheal's in like a dark chocolatey brown and like more of a champagne color. I was just going to do the brown originally, but I thought I would add a little bit more color to the card by adding the champagne color. And then it just gives it a little bit more texture as well with the two shades. Right now I'm putting on the frosting. I decided to do a second layer of the alcohol marker on the parts that drip down the side of the cake, just to make it look like the tops are a little bit more highlighted and the bottoms are darker around the sides. It does add that little bit of separation and dimension to the cake, and I'm very happy with how this came out. The pieces are very easy to line up. They do make it look so that the cakes are sitting on top of each other within one another, like it would for a tiered cake, so each cake layer would be centered on a real cake. So you see that little bit of a lip at the bottom of each section. And then here I'm using the Celebrate sentiment. I cut it out in white because I wanted to color it. I wasn't sure what color at the time I wanted to do, but I ended up doing like a two-tone blue sentiment. So I did like a lighter blue on the top, a darker blue on the bottom. And originally I was going to try to blend them together a bit more, but I end up doing it more of a somewhat straight line across, because that's the way it was turning out. It was very delicate to do this just because it is a more scripty font, so there's less places for it to attach to, like they're very thin. So if you know what colors you're doing, I would recommend cutting it out in that cardstock color, or if you want to do something like this, I would try to make that decision up front before you cut, and then cut it out of the pre-blended cardstock. If you have a scan and cut like I do, it's a little bit easier to do that. It might be a little bit more difficult on the Cricut, but I think it's still doable. You would just have to make sure you're putting your cardstock in the area you're going to be cutting. It might not be exactly where you want it to be, but it will be in the general area. The advantage with the Brother Scan and Cut, obviously if you guys have one, is you can scan the area that you're cutting, so then you can place things a little bit easier. So that's why I love having that tool. So next time, if I would just to do this again, I would definitely color this first and then cut it out after. I'm just gonna put that Celebrate in between the bottom and the middle layer there. I've always loved the blue and brown combos. I don't know why. I think it just like works well together. I was trying to figure out which colors I wanted to do, and that was the only color combination that made sense to me. And I'm putting it on a Nina Desert Storm cardstock base that I made. I also cut out the little candles in white cardstock and colored those as well, just because it was a lot easier. They are very tiny little pieces. So again, if you want to cut those all out in white and color them, it's really quick and easy to do. And then here I am, just like I'm looking at the card, I'm like, okay, it needs a little something else. So this is gonna be my like 10-part ending to a movie kind of thing, where I add this, think I'm done, add something else, think I'm done, and then add something again. So I'm just adding white stitching around the edges of the card. Then I end up adding white highlights to the frosting to give it a little bit more depth and give it a bit of a shiny look. You could of course use glossy accents on this. Obviously it takes a little bit to dry, but it would give it that glossy look. It's a pretty big area to cover though, so it might take up a lot of the product. And then here I'm going to add some glitter gel pen, just 3 dots into the left side of each letter. And then I added white dots and lines on the candles as well. And that's it for today. Thanks again for joining me again. Like, comment, subscribe, and give me any suggestions if you have any. I would really appreciate it. If you want me to try anything new, just let me know, and I'll see what I can do for you. Okay, thank you. Bye.